The morning sun shone bright on the busy streets of London. People walked fast, going to work or running errands. Among them was an old woman named Martha. She was taking her small brown dog, Max, for their daily walk. Max was a happy dog with soft fur and a wagging tail. He loved these morning walks more than anything. "Slow down, Max," Martha called as the dog pulled on his leash. She was wearing a blue coat and had gray hair tied in a bun. Her steps were slow, but her smile was warm as she watched Max sniff every corner and lamppost. Not far from them, at the end of the street, a man in a black leather jacket sat on his motorcycle. This was Ray Coleman. He was known in the area as the leader of a small but mean biker gang. Today, Ray was in a very bad mood. His girlfriend had left him the day before, taking most of his money. Then his motorcycle had started making strange noises on his way into town. Ray's face was hard, with a scar across his left cheek. His eyes were cold as he watched people walk by. He was looking for someone to blame for his bad day. That's when he saw Martha and Max. "Stupid dog," Ray muttered under his breath. He hated small dogs. They reminded him of his ex-girlfriend's pet that always barked at him. He watched as Martha bent down to fix her shoelace, letting Max's leash go slack. Max, feeling the freedom, moved a few steps away from Martha. The little dog saw a bird and wanted to chase it. He didn't know he was walking straight toward danger. At that same moment, in a small cafe across the street, a man sat alone at an outdoor table. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a black t-shirt, and a cap pulled low over his eyes. Most people walking by didn't look twice at him. They didn't realize that under that cap was Jason Statham, the famous action movie star. Jason was back in London for a short break between filming movies. He was enjoying the simple pleasure of having a hot coffee and watching the city life. He liked these quiet moments away from cameras and fans. Jason had just taken a sip of his coffee when he noticed Martha and Max. He smiled slightly, watching the old woman and her excited dog. It reminded him of his own childhood pet. Then his eyes moved to Ray, and his smile faded. Jason could read body language well. It was part of his job. And he could tell the biker was trouble. Ray got off his motorcycle, his heavy boots making a thud on the pavement. He walked toward Max, who was now sniffing at a trash can. Martha was still fixing her shoe, not aware of what was about to happen. Jason set down his coffee cup. His eyes narrowed as he watched Ray get closer to the dog. Something in the biker's walk, in the way his fists were clenched, sent a warning signal to Jason's brain. Ray looked around quickly to see if anyone was watching. He didn't notice Jason observing him from the cafe. Ray thought he was safe to do whatever he wanted. A cruel smile spread across his face as he reached the small dog. Max looked up at Ray with friendly eyes, his tail still wagging. The dog had no idea that the man standing over him meant harm. Martha finally stood up and saw Ray near her dog. She called out, "Max, come here, boy." But it was too late. Before Max could run back to Martha, Ray pulled back his foot. Jason was already halfway out of his seat, but he couldn't get there in time. With a swift kick, Ray sent the small dog flying against a nearby wall. Max let out a painful yelp that made everyone nearby stop and stare. "That'll teach you to get in my way," Ray laughed, as Martha screamed in horror. What Ray didn't know was that Jason Statham had now stood up completely, his face set in a hard, determined look, and he was walking straight toward the biker. The sound of Max's painful yelp seemed to freeze time on the busy London street. People stopped walking. Cars slowed down. All eyes turned to see what had happened. Martha ran to her dog, her face pale with fear. "Max! Oh, my poor Max!" she cried, kneeling beside the small brown dog who was shaking in pain. Martha's hands trembled as she gently touched her pet. Tears ran down her wrinkled face. Ray stood over them, a mean smile on his face. He felt big and strong after hurting something small and helpless. He looked around at the crowd, daring anyone to say something. Most people looked away, afraid to challenge the tough biker. "What are you all looking at?" Ray shouted. Mind your own business." Meanwhile, Jason Statham moved with purpose across the street. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with anger. He walked like a man who knew exactly what he was going to do. People who recognized him stepped back in surprise, whispering to each other, "Is that Jason Statham? What is he doing here? Is he going to help the dog?" Ray didn't hear these whispers. He was too busy enjoying the fear he saw in people's eyes. He kicked an empty can and laughed. "Next time, keep your mutt on a leash, old woman," Ray said to Martha. He turned to walk away, thinking he had won. That's when he heard a deep, steady voice behind him. "Hey, you." Ray turned around, annoyed that someone dared to speak to him. He saw a fit man in simple clothes standing a few feet away. Ray didn't recognize Jason Statham. He just saw someone who needed to be taught a lesson. "What do you want?" Ray asked, his voice rough. He stood taller, trying to look more scary. Jason took another step forward. "You just kicked that dog," he said. His voice was quiet but strong, like distant thunder. Ray laughed and cracked his knuckles. "Yeah, so what? What are you going to do about it?" People around them backed away, sensing trouble. Some pulled out their phones to record what was happening. Martha was still on the ground with Max, trying to comfort her pet. "First," Jason said, "you're going to say sorry to the lady." He pointed to Martha. "Then you're going to help get her dog to a vet." Ray couldn't believe what he was hearing. No one had talked to him like this in years. He was the one who gave orders, not some stranger in a cap. "Do you know who I am?" Ray asked, pointing to the gang symbol on his leather jacket. "I'm Ray Coleman. I run these streets." Jason didn't seem impressed. He didn't even blink. "And do you know who I am?" he asked quietly. Before Ray could answer, a young woman in the crowd called out, "That's Jason Statham, the action movie star." Ray's face changed as he finally recognized the man standing in front of him. For a second, doubt flashed in his eyes, but then his pride took over. He couldn't back down now, not with everyone watching. "I don't care if you're the Queen of England," Ray said, trying to sound brave. "No one tells me what to do." With that, Ray stepped forward and tried to push Jason in the chest. It was a big mistake. Jason moved like water, smooth and fast. He stepped to the side and caught Ray's arm mid-push. In one quick movement, he twisted the arm behind Ray's back. Ray let out a surprised gasp of pain. He tried to break free, but Jason's grip was like iron. The crowd gasped and more phones came out to record the scene. "Let go of me," Ray shouted, his face turning red with pain and shame. Jason leaned in close to Ray's ear. "Not until you make things right," he said. His voice was low, for Ray alone to hear. "I can stand here all day. Can your arm?" Ray struggled for a few more seconds before realizing he was trapped. The famous movie star was stronger than he looked, much stronger, and Ray was starting to understand that he had made a terrible, terrible mistake. Ray's face was now bright red. His tough guy image was falling apart in front of everyone. Jason Statham still held his arm behind his back, not hurting him badly, but making sure he couldn't move. The crowd around them grew larger. People whispered and pointed at the famous movie star and the mean biker he had caught. "My arm. You're breaking my arm," Ray shouted, trying to make Jason look like the bad guy. Jason shook his head. "I'm not even twisting hard," he said calmly. "Now, about that apology." Martha was still on the ground with Max. The small dog was whimpering softly. A kind woman from the crowd had come to help her, offering a soft scarf to wrap around the dog. "He needs a vet," the woman said to Martha. "I think your dog might have a broken rib." Hearing this, Jason's face became even more serious. He pushed Ray down to his knees, making the biker face Martha and Max. "Apologize," Jason said. His voice was not loud, but everyone could hear the command in it. "Now." Ray looked at the old woman and her hurt dog. For the first time that day, maybe for the first time in years, He felt a little ashamed. With all these people watching, with Jason Statham holding him down, his tough act began to crack. I'm sorry, Ray muttered, not looking Martha in the eyes. Louder, Jason said. And like you mean it. Ray took a deep breath. I'm sorry I kicked your dog, ma'am, he said more clearly. It was wrong. Martha looked up at Ray with sad eyes. Why would you hurt a small dog? What did Max ever do to you? Ray had no good answer. He looked down at the ground, unable to meet her gaze. Jason wasn't done yet. Now your wallet, he said to Ray. What? No way. Ray tried to resist again, but Jason applied just a little more pressure to his arm. Ray quickly changed his mind. Okay. It's in my left pocket. Jason reached into Ray's jacket and pulled out a thick black wallet. He opened it with one hand, still holding Ray with the other. Inside was a lot of cash. Planning to buy some new bike parts today? Jason asked. Ray nodded, looking miserable. Jason took out all the money and handed it to the woman helping Martha. This is for the vet bills, he explained. Make sure the dog gets the best care. The woman counted the money. It was over 500 pounds. This will cover everything and more, she said. Jason gave the empty wallet back to Ray and finally released his arm. Ray stood up, rubbing his sore shoulder. The crowd was still watching, many people recording everything on their phones. Can I go now? Ray asked in a small voice. Jason looked him straight in the eyes. Do you have a mother, Ray? Ray seemed surprised by the question. Yeah, of course. Does she know this is how you act? Kicking small animals and scaring old ladies. Ray looked down again, his tough image completely gone now. Some people in the crowd were shaking their heads at him. Others were smirking at how Jason had humbled the biker. I want you to think about something, Jason continued. Every time you try to act tough by hurting something weaker than you, you're actually showing everyone how weak you really are. Real strength is in protecting others, not hurting them. A young boy in the crowd nodded his head, taking in Jason's words. His mother squeezed his shoulder, glad her son was learning this important lesson. Just then, a taxi pulled up. The woman helping Martha had called it. Let's get Max to the vet right away, she said, helping Martha stand up. Jason stepped forward. I'll come with you, he offered. I want to make sure Max gets everything he needs. As they carefully placed the injured dog in the taxi, Ray stood alone on the sidewalk. No one was paying attention to him anymore. The crowd's eyes were on Jason, the real hero of the day. Ray's phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from one of his biker friends. Dude, you're all over social media. Did you really get taken down by Jason Statham? Ray put his phone away without answering. This was far from over. The taxi drove quickly through the London streets, carrying Martha, Max, and Jason Statham to the nearest animal hospital. In the back seat, Martha gently stroked Max's fur while he lay on Jason's jacket, which the actor had kindly offered as a soft bed for the injured dog. Thank you so much, Martha said to Jason, her voice shaking. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. Jason smiled kindly at the old woman. Don't worry about it. That man had no right to hurt your dog. The taxi driver kept looking in his mirror, amazed to have the famous Jason Statham in his car. My kids won't believe this, he said with a wide smile. They love your movies, Mr. Statham. Jason nodded politely but kept his focus on Max. The small dog was breathing fast but seemed a little calmer now. Meanwhile, back on the street, Ray Coleman was having the worst day of his life. As he walked back to his motorcycle, people stepped away from him. Some pointed and whispered. A group of teenagers laughed at him. That's the guy who got owned by Jason Statham, one of them said loudly. Ray's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Videos of him being held down by the movie star were already all over the internet. His biker friends were sending message after message, some laughing at him, others angry that he had made their gang look bad. When Ray reached his motorcycle, he found a paper stuck to it. It was a drawing of a dog with the words "dog kicker" written under it. Ray crumpled the paper and threw it away. His hands were shaking. His reputation was ruined. Just as Ray was about to get on his bike, a police car pulled up beside him. 2 officers stepped out. Ray Coleman, one of them asked. Ray nodded, his heart sinking. "We've had several calls about you kicking a dog and causing a disturbance," the officer said. "We need you to come with us to answer some questions." Ray looked down at his empty wallet. He had no money now for a lawyer. He had no friends to call for help. As the police led him to their car, he knew things were only going to get worse. At the animal hospital, Max was quickly taken to an examination room. A young vet with kind eyes carefully checked the small dog while Martha and Jason waited. "You're Jason Statham, aren't you?" the vet asked as she gently felt Max's side. "My sister and I just watched your new movie last weekend." Jason smiled. "That's right. But today I'm just here to help Martha and Max." The vet nodded and turned back to her work. After a few minutes, she looked up with good news. "It's not as bad as we feared," she said. "No broken ribs, but Max has some bad bruising. He'll need rest and some medicine for the pain, but he should recover fully." Martha started crying with relief. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, stroking Max's head. The small dog licked her hand weakly. "How much will this cost?" Martha asked worriedly. "I'm on a fixed income." Jason stepped forward. "It's all taken care of," he said. He handed the vet the money he had taken from Ray. "This should cover Max's treatment and any follow-up visits." The vet counted the money and raised her eyebrows. "This is more than enough," she said. "Are you sure?" Jason nodded. "Use whatever's left to help other animals who need care." Martha looked at Jason with tears in her eyes. "Why are you being so kind to us? You don't even know us." Jason sat down next to Martha. "I had a dog when I was a boy," he explained. "His name was Jack. He was my best friend for many years. One day, some mean kid hurt him while I was at school. I never forgot how helpless I felt when I couldn't protect him." He gently patted Max's head. "I guess today I got to do what I couldn't do for Jack." The vet finished bandaging Max and gave him a small shot for pain. "He'll need to stay here tonight for observation," she explained. "You can take him home tomorrow." Martha nodded, still overwhelmed by Jason's kindness. Outside the examination room, phones were ringing constantly. Word was spreading fast about Jason Statham's good deed. By evening, the story of Jason Statham saving a dog from a mean biker was everywhere. News websites posted the videos taken by people on the street. TV shows talked about the Hollywood hero in London. On social media, people shared pictures of their own dogs with messages thanking Jason Statham. At the police station, Ray Coleman sat in a small room with plain walls. A tired-looking police officer asked him many questions about what happened. Ray tried to make his story sound better than it was. "I didn't kick the dog that hard," Ray said. "Everyone is making a big deal out of nothing." The officer looked at Ray with cold eyes. "We have 23 videos of the incident," he said. "The dog was clearly hurt, and you have a record of causing trouble before." Ray sank lower in his chair. He was in serious trouble now. The officer told him he would need to appear in court next month on charges of animal cruelty. When Ray was finally allowed to leave the police station, it was dark outside. He walked to where he had parked his motorcycle, but it wasn't there. A note on the ground told him it had been towed away for illegal parking. Ray kicked the ground in anger, then stopped himself. Kicking things was what had started all this trouble. With no money for a taxi and no motorcycle, Ray had to walk all the way home. It took him 2 hours. With each step, he grew more angry about what had happened to him. But a small voice in his head kept asking if he deserved it all. At the animal hospital, Martha had gone home to rest after a long day. She would return in the morning to pick up Max. Jason Statham stayed a bit longer, making sure Max was comfortable for the night. "He's quite a fighter," the vet told Jason as they watched Max sleeping peacefully in his cage. He'll be good as new in a week or two. Jason smiled. Small but tough, he said. That's what I like to see. As Jason was leaving the animal hospital, his phone rang. It was his agent from Hollywood. Jason, have you seen the news? His agent asked excitedly. You're trending everywhere. People love what you did today. I've already got 3 offers for new movies, and 2 dog food companies want you as their spokesman. Jason laughed and shook his head. I didn't do it for publicity, he said. I just did what anyone should do. That's exactly why people love it. His agent said. It was real, not some movie stunt. After hanging up, Jason thought about how strange life could be. He had come to London for a quiet break from work. Now he was more famous than ever because of a small dog and a mean biker. When Jason got back to his hotel, the staff all clapped for him. The hotel manager came forward with a big smile. Mr. Statham, we are so proud to have you staying with us, he said. The hotel would like to offer you our best suite at no charge for as long as you are in London. Jason thanked him, but said his current room was fine. As he went up to his room, he checked his own social media accounts. There were thousands of new messages from fans. Many of them shared stories about how they had helped animals after seeing what he did. One message caught his eye. It was from a children's hospital in London. They asked if Jason would visit some sick children who had seen his story and now called him their hero. Jason immediately wrote back, saying he would be happy to visit the next day. As he got ready for bed, Jason thought about the strange way the day had turned out. He had only wanted to help a dog in trouble. Now he had a chance to bring happiness to sick children too. Sometimes, he thought, doing the right thing leads to more good than you can imagine. Across town, Ray Coleman finally reached his small apartment. He found a note on his door from his landlord. Because Ray had not paid his rent for 2 months, he had 3 days to move out. Ray crumpled the note and threw it on the ground. Then he thought better of it, picked it up, and put it in his pocket. He needed to start making better choices. The next morning, Martha arrived at the animal hospital early. She wore her best dress and had fixed her hair nicely. She wanted to look good in case she saw Jason Statham again. The nurse at the front desk smiled when she saw Martha. Good morning. You're Max's owner, right? He's doing very well today, the nurse said. She led Martha to a room where Max was waiting. When Max saw Martha, his tail wagged fast despite his bandages. He tried to stand up to greet her. Easy boy, Martha said with happy tears in her eyes. She gently petted Max's head. We need to get you all better first. The vet came in with some papers and medicine. Max is recovering nicely, she said. He can go home now, but he needs to rest for at least a week. No long walks or running. Martha nodded, carefully listening to all the instructions about Max's medicine. As she was getting ready to leave, the vet handed her an envelope. Mr. Statham left this for you, the vet said. He came by very early this morning to check on Max, but he couldn't stay. Martha opened the envelope. Inside was a note and a small card. The note read, Martha, I'm glad Max is feeling better. If you ever need anything, please call my assistant at this number. I've arranged for all of Max's future vet care to be covered. Take care of your brave little friend, Jason. Martha held the note close to her heart, touched by such kindness from a famous movie star. At the same time, Ray Coleman woke up in his messy apartment. His head hurt, and his phone was still buzzing with messages. Most of his biker friends were now making fun of him. Some had even shared more embarrassing stories about him online. Ray Coleman, dog kicker and coward, was trending on local social media. There were memes with his face looking scared while Jason Statham held him down. Ray's boss at the motorcycle repair shop called. Don't bother coming in today, he said coldly, or ever again. We don't want someone who hurts animals working here. Ray threw his phone against the wall in anger. Everything was falling apart. He had lost his job, his girlfriend, his money, and now his reputation. All because he kicked a stupid dog. As Ray sat on his worn-out couch feeling sorry for himself, There was a knock at his door. He opened it to find 3 large men with angry faces. They were wearing leather jackets with the same gang symbol as his. "Boss wants to see you," the biggest man said. It wasn't a request. Ray knew this was bad news. The leader of their biker gang, Big Mike, took their reputation very seriously. Making the gang look bad was a serious offense. Across town, Jason Statham walked into the children's hospital carrying a big bag of stuffed animals. The hospital staff greeted him warmly and led him to a colorful room where 20 children waited excitedly. "It's really him," a small boy in a wheelchair said, his eyes wide with wonder. Jason spent the next 2 hours signing autographs, taking photos, and telling stories about his movies. The children loved hearing how he did his own stunts, but what they really wanted to know was about the dog. "Is the dog okay now?" a little girl with no hair asked. She was wearing a colorful headscarf and had big, serious eyes. Jason sat down next to her. "Yes, his name is Max. I checked on him this morning, and he's doing much better." "Did you really beat up the bad man who hurt the dog?" a boy with a cast on his arm asked. Jason smiled. "I didn't beat him up. I just made sure he couldn't hurt the dog anymore." "I think hurting animals is the worst thing ever," the little girl said. The other children nodded in agreement. "I think so too," Jason replied. "That's why we should always protect those who can't protect themselves." The children clapped and cheered. For them, Jason Statham was not just a movie hero anymore. He was a real-life hero too. Meanwhile, at a dark bar on the edge of town, Ray was about to meet with Big Mike. His hands were sweating and his heart was beating fast. He knew his life was about to get even worse. Big Mike sat at a corner table in the dark bar. He was a huge man with a thick beard and arms covered in tattoos. When Ray was brought before him, Big Mike did not look happy. "Sit down," Big Mike ordered. His voice was deep and rough, like gravel. Ray sat across from his boss, trying not to look scared. The 3 men who had brought him stood nearby, watching with cold eyes. "Do you know what this is?" Big Mike asked, pushing his phone across the table. On the screen was a picture of Ray being held down by Jason Statham. "It's just," Ray started to explain, but Big Mike cut him off. "It's bad for business," Big Mike growled. "Very bad. Everyone in London is talking about how a Black Skull member kicks small dogs and gets taken down by movie stars." The Black Skulls was their gang's name. They were known for being tough and scary, not for being embarrassed in public. "I didn't know it was Jason Statham," Ray said weakly. Big Mike slammed his fist on the table. "That doesn't matter. You kicked an old lady's dog. What kind of man does that?" He pointed to the skull patch on Ray's jacket. "You don't deserve to wear our colors anymore." With a nod from Big Mike, one of the men stepped forward and ripped the skull patch off Ray's jacket. "You're out," Big Mike said. "And don't come around any of our places again. No one hurts animals on my watch. My mother has 5 rescue dogs." Ray was shocked. He never knew Big Mike liked dogs. As he was led outside, the men took his jacket too, leaving him in just a t-shirt on the cold street. Meanwhile, Martha had brought Max home to her small apartment. She made him a special bed on the sofa with soft blankets. Her neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, came over to see how Max was doing. "Everyone in the building is talking about what happened," Mrs. Wilson said, gently petting Max. "And about that handsome movie star who helped you." Martha showed Mrs. Wilson the note from Jason. Mrs. Wilson's eyes grew wide. "Martha, this is amazing. He's paying for all of Max's future care. What a wonderful man." Martha nodded, still hardly believing it herself. "He said he had a dog when he was young. I think helping Max meant something special to him." The 2 women were interrupted by Martha's phone ringing. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello," she answered nervously. "Hello, is this Martha?" a friendly voice asked. "This is Sarah, Jason Statham's assistant. Mr. Statham asked me to check how Max is doing today. Martha was surprised and pleased. Oh, Max is home now and resting well. Thank you. That's wonderful news, Sarah said. Mr. Statham is filming a movie in London next month, and he was wondering if you and Max might like to visit the set one day. When Max is fully recovered, of course. Martha could hardly believe her ears. Visit a real movie set? Max and me. Oh my, that would be wonderful. After hanging up, Martha told Mrs. Wilson the exciting news. Soon, other neighbors came by to see Max and hear the story directly from Martha. Everyone brought little treats for Max and kind words for Martha. She had never felt so cared for by her community. Across town, Jason was finishing his visit at the children's hospital. As he was leaving, the hospital director approached him. Mr. Statham, your visit has meant so much to the children, she said. We've never seen them so happy and excited. Jason smiled. It was my pleasure. They're brave kids. We have an annual fundraiser coming up next month, the director said. Would you consider being our special guest? It would help us raise much more money for the children's care. Jason thought about his schedule. He was supposed to start filming his new movie soon. But looking back at the smiling faces of the children waving goodbye to him, he knew what his answer would be. I'd be honored, he said. Just tell me when and where. As Jason walked out of the hospital, several reporters were waiting. News of his visit had spread. Camera flashes went off, and people shouted questions about the dog incident and his visit with the sick children. Jason paused for a moment to answer a few questions, explaining simply that he believed in standing up for those who needed help. As he spoke, he didn't notice a familiar motorcycle parked across the street, or the man watching him from the shadows. The man watching Jason from the shadows wasn't Ray. It was Ray's older brother, Tony Coleman. Tony had just returned from working on an oil rig in the North Sea. He had heard about what happened to Ray and wanted to see this Jason Statham for himself. Tony was bigger than Ray, with the same mean look but more muscles. He had been in more fights than he could count. As he watched Jason talking to reporters, Tony felt anger growing inside him. Nobody messed with a Coleman and got away with it, not even a famous movie star. I'll fix this, Tony muttered to himself. Nobody makes my little brother look bad like that. But as Tony was about to cross the street toward Jason, something unexpected happened. A small girl in a wheelchair came out of the hospital with her mother. She called out to Jason, who immediately turned away from the reporters. Mr. Statham. Wait, the girl called. I forgot to give you something. Jason walked over to the girl with a warm smile. She handed him a drawing she had made. It showed Jason standing next to a small dog. Both wore superhero capes. This is beautiful, Jason said, kneeling down to the girl's level. Thank you so much. The girl smiled shyly. I want to help animals when I grow up, just like you. Tony watched this scene from across the street. His angry face slowly changed. He had expected to see a proud, stuck-up celebrity. Instead, he saw a man being kind to a sick child. Something about it reminded him of how he used to look after Ray when they were kids. Tony's phone rang. It was Ray, sounding desperate. Tony, everything's gone wrong, Ray said. I lost my job, my apartment, and the gang kicked me out. I've got nowhere to go. Tony sighed. Where are you now? At the bus station. I was thinking of leaving town. Tony looked again at Jason, who was now signing autographs for other children who had come outside. Stay there, Tony told Ray. I'm coming to get you, but we need to talk about what you did. Meanwhile, Martha was sitting with Max at her apartment when her phone rang again. It was the local newspaper, wanting to interview her about what had happened. Everyone wants to hear your story, the reporter said, about how Jason Statham saved your dog. Martha was surprised. I'm just an ordinary old woman. Why would anyone care about me? Because your story touched people's hearts, the reporter explained. It shows that even famous people can do small, kind things that matter. After thinking about it, Martha agreed to the interview, but only if they would come to her apartment so she wouldn't have to leave Max alone. Across London, at a small bus station, Ray sat on a hard bench with his one small bag. He had packed the few things he could carry from his apartment before his landlord changed the locks. He felt lower than he had ever felt before. A woman sat down on the bench next to him. She had a small carrier with her, and from inside, Ray could hear a cat mewing softly. "Are you okay?" the woman asked, noticing Ray's sad face. Ray just shrugged. He wasn't used to strangers being nice to him. The woman opened the carrier a little, showing a gray cat inside. "This is Luna. I just adopted her from the shelter. They said no one wanted her because she's missing an eye, but I think she's perfect." Ray looked at the one-eyed cat, who stared back at him without fear. "Want to pet her?" the woman offered. "She's very friendly." Without really thinking about it, Ray reached out a finger toward the cat. Luna sniffed it, then rubbed her head against his hand. For the first time in days, Ray felt a small smile on his face. "I used to have a cat when I was a kid," Ray said quietly. "Before my dad said pets were for wimps." The woman frowned. "That's a terrible thing to say. Caring for animals takes a lot of strength and patience." Just then, Ray saw his brother's truck pull up outside the bus station. Tony honked the horn twice. "That's my ride," Ray said, standing up. He looked at Luna one more time. "Good luck with your new cat. She's nice." As Ray walked toward his brother's truck, something had changed inside him. It was small, but it was a start. 1 month later, the London sky was bright blue as Martha and Max arrived at the movie studio. Max was fully recovered now, his fur shiny and his tail wagging happily. Martha wore her best dress and a new hat for this special day. Sarah, Jason's assistant, met them at the gate. "Welcome. Jason can't wait to see you both," she said with a warm smile. Martha held Max's leash tightly. "I'm a bit nervous," she admitted. "I've never been on a movie set before." Sarah led them through the busy studio. People with cameras, lights, and microphones moved quickly around them. Some stopped to pet Max, who enjoyed all the attention. "Here we are," Sarah said, opening a door to a quiet room. Inside, Jason Statham was sitting on a couch reading a script. When he saw them, he stood up with a big smile. "Martha, Max," he said, coming over to greet them. He shook Martha's hand and bent down to pet Max. "Look at you, buddy. All better now." Max remembered Jason. He wagged his tail extra fast and licked Jason's hand. "He never forgot you," Martha said. "Dogs always remember who was kind to them." Jason showed them around the movie set. Martha was amazed by all the cameras and fake buildings. Max got to sit in the director's chair, making everyone laugh. At lunchtime, the whole film crew ate together, and Martha told them all about how Max was doing so well now. At the same time, across town, Ray Coleman was starting his first day at his new job. After Ray's brother Tony had picked him up that day at the bus station, they had a long, serious talk. Tony had told Ray he needed to change his life and make things right. Now Ray was wearing a clean shirt and sweeping the floor at the London animal shelter. It wasn't a fancy job, but it was a start. The shelter manager watched Ray carefully, still not sure about hiring someone with Ray's past. "Remember, you're on probation for the first month," she reminded him. "One wrong move, and you're out." Ray nodded. "I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance." In the next room, dogs barked from their cages. Some were big, some were small. All needed homes. At first, these sounds had made Ray nervous. But now, after 2 weeks of volunteering here before getting hired, he was getting used to it. A small brown dog that looked a bit like Max watched Ray from its cage. The dog had been found on the street, hurt and scared. Ray had been helping to care for it each day. "Hey there, buddy," Ray said quietly, using the name he had given the dog. He opened the cage door carefully and attached a leash to take Buddy for his morning walk. Outside in the shelter's small yard, Ray watched as Buddy ran around happily. His phone buzzed with a message from Tony. "How's the first day going?" Ray texted back, "Good so far. Taking Buddy for a walk now." He took a picture of the small dog and sent it to his brother. Tony replied with a thumbs up. Back at the movie studio, it was time for Martha and Max to leave. Jason walked them to the gate. "Thank you for coming," Jason said. "It means a lot to me to see Max doing so well." Martha had tears in her eyes. "No, thank you. You changed our lives that day." Jason smiled. "Maybe we all changed a little that day." As Martha and Max walked away, a reporter approached Jason for an interview about his new movie. The reporter's first question wasn't about the film. "Is it true you're now the patron of the London Animal Shelter? The shelter has received record donations since you got involved." Jason nodded. "Yes, it's a cause close to my heart. Every animal deserves kindness and protection." What Jason didn't know was that earlier that same day, the shelter had hired a man who had learned this lesson the hard way. That evening, as the sun set over London, 4 lives continued on paths that had been forever changed by one moment on a street corner. Martha sat in her apartment with Max beside her, reading get-well cards from people all over the country. Jason returned to filming, carrying the drawing from the little girl in his pocket for good luck. Ray sat alone in his brother's small apartment, looking up courses on animal care on an old laptop. And somewhere in London, a movie poster on a wall had a small addition someone had drawn on it, a tiny dog standing proudly next to Jason Statham. Underneath were the words, "Be kind to animals. You never know who's watching."